Hey y'all, this is Victor Haskins with the 6th lesson in the How to Improvise series, and the 2nd dealing with style. In the first episode of Style, the last episode, we took the first 2 bars of Three Blind Mice and used it as a springboard for our stylistic creativity, conjuring different combinations of articulations and dynamics. In this episode, we're going to take style to the next level by adding the concept of shape. When I say shape, I mean the shape of a story. So, in a story, we have the beginning, the exposition, the rising action leading to the climax, the falling action, and then the resolution leading to the end of the story. We're going to use some concepts from the idea from a story in order to give some direction to how we implement style when we're practicing it. So, let's look at this graph here. On the x-axis, we'll have time, starting at 0 and then going to infinity. On the y-axis, we'll have dynamics, and that's 0 for mezzo forte, and everything on the positive side of the y-axis is louder than mezzo forte. Everything on the negative side of the y-axis is softer than mezzo forte. Now there's no exact values because everything is really just relative. We're using this as a guide. So we'll take the first 4 bars of Three Blind Mice and we're going to loop it. And the way we do this one differently is we will specify how many times we will play this 4-bar section per storyline, in order to create different amounts of time over which we have to implement the story. So I'm going to show you some examples of how I might practice this using a few different storylines and a few different lengths. So for this first storyline, which you see on your screen, I'm going to play this 4-bar section just one time, so one iteration of the loop. Remember, we're only using the original melody and rhythms, we're just changing style. So here we go. Okay, so you saw, according to the storyline, as time progresses, I went from a forte volume, dropped down eventually to a sort of piano volume, and then back up to a sort of medium-ish volume. That was relative to the amount of time I had to express that storyline and how I interpreted that storyline in order to make sense. What we're doing is practicing making sense. I'll explain more about that after I do this next example. So now look at this storyline that you see on your screen. Here we go. So for both of those, I end up using one iteration of the whole 4-bar sequence. Now, on that one, we noticed we had, the way I drew the storyline, there was some different contours in the line. In fact, the line wasn't even completely continuous. And so that's kind of the idea I want, is us to create these different situations and try to make sense out of them. And the way I interpreted that one, instead of going back to mezzo forte, I actually ended up going back to piano. And so I did these specifically right before I recorded this episode, so I didn't have time to practice them, so you could see how I might work on implementing these storylines to practicing style. And so I'm going to do one more, and we'll see how accurately I can do this one. I'll do this one over 2 iterations of the 4-bar loop, so 8 bars total. So check out that storyline. Here we go. Okay, so why are we practicing style like this? This is a very artificial way to practice style. But why are we doing it like this? Like I said before I did the last example, we're practicing making sense. If you notice, this is sort of a difficult exercise because Three Blind Mice, the entire 8-bar tune, is the full statement, so to speak. Remember, we have in the first 2 bars a simple sentence, the second 2 bars a simple sentence, and the last 4 bars a compound sentence. So we only have half of the full statement. It's such a short tune, it's really one complete statement that has the beginning and then the resolution here. If we were to liken this, what we're using this exercise, the way we're using this exercise, it's like we're telling the story of Goldilocks and Three Bears from the beginning of the story all the way up until she falls asleep in Baby Bear's bed. The climax happens when the bears get home. And so we're doing the same sort of thing by using just the 4 bars of this tune. The first 4 bars is only the rising action leading up to the climax, which is in bar 5, but we're having to tell a full story with only half of the elements of that full story. What does that make us do? It makes us have to become better storytellers, because great stories are not made from great material, it's made from great storytelling. Anyone you know who tells great stories doesn't necessarily have the most amazing content in those stories, it's how they tell the story that makes the story exciting. They could tell a story about how they got milk in the lunch line, or they're waiting at a bus stop and found a nickel, and it can be the most exciting thing. Finding a nickel is not all that exciting, but if you tell it like it is, it can be. So, that's our lesson on style this week. Work on drawing as many different kinds of storylines and different kinds of contours as you can, and try to implement those into creating a complete story that makes sense. And making sense is a relative thing, so you have to figure out how to make sense for yourself, because different things will make sense in different situations. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys next week for our final lesson on style, or what I think might be our final lesson on style. Thank you.